Hi everyone, this is Jeff from Excel with Grace Sport Specific Yoga. What I'm going to go over in this video today is just some of what I would consider some of the fundamental poses that we do in yoga, and one of the most fundamental thing we do in yoga, which is breathing. So right away, to go over that aspect, is what I would really like you to do, as we do in any of the sequences, is to make sure you follow your breath. So what I mean by that is not only having the awareness on your breath, but that all of your movements follow your breath. So before you start a movement, you're going to either start an inhale or start an exhale, and then you'll start your movement. So that does two things. One, it brings your awareness and your focus into exactly what you're doing, into the moment. And two, it allows you to move with greater ease. So we're going to get right to it with what is called mountain. So basically, we're coming into perfect posture. So that's feet hip distance apart, pointed straight forward. And you want to feel the four corners of your feet down strong. So that's a big toe mound, little toe mound, inner, outer side of the heel. You want to feel those points really strongly into the ground, spreading the toes wide so you have a solid base of support in your feet. Your knees want to be pointed fairly straight forward. Your hips in a neutral position. So one way to find that would be just to I like to put my hands on the top of my hips and rock the hips back and forth, and really try to just do that through the pelvis. And then you'll find the different extremes of the one motion and the other, and you just want to find the middle. At that point, your hip flexors should be fairly relaxed, and you should feel like the spine is almost floating out from the hips. Shoulders. You want to allow shoulders to drop back and down, and make sure they're relaxed. A lot of people will pull them back and down. You want to make sure they're relaxed back and down. And you want to have your core slightly engaged. Neck long. So a lot of people, when they think neck long, is they'll start to bring their chin up. You want to keep your chin tucked and pulled back, so you feel like the earlobes are coming right over the shoulders. Now, for most of us, that's not going to put us in an extremely attractive position, because it actually creates a little bit of a double chin. But that's the best way to lengthen through the neck. So just finding that positioning, you'll have the palms facing straight forward. And so in mountain, just take 3 deep breaths. Maybe thinking about a 3-part breath where you inhale, stomach fills, ribs widen, chest rises, exhale, release, and just do that a couple of times. Okay, now from mountain, we're going to go into forward fold. So inhale, bring the arms up and out. On the exhale, you're going to bring the arms out by your sides. Lead with your chest. Make sure you're connected to your core, spine is long, and you're folding forward from your hips. Once you come into your forward fold, you want to make sure that the knees are bent enough that the upper body is coming close or onto the thighs. So that might be really bent, that might be fairly straight. Okay, you're allowing yourself to go wherever is best for you. You want to have the stretch, the extension coming through the hamstrings. And if you're feeling any pain in the low back, make sure you bend the knees a little bit more. So what we're going to do now is bend into both knees. Place your hands down onto the ground so you bend your knees enough so that can happen. Inhale, bring your left leg back towards the back of the mat. Exhale, and then inhale, bring your right leg back to meet it. And we're going to come into a high push-up position. So with our high push-up position, you want to have the fingers spread wide, index fingers pointed fairly straight forward. Now, before I go through the rest of it, you can always drop the knees down here. okay? The most important thing is that you're connected to the core if your knees are dropped down and your spine is long. So, coming back to what I was talking about, fingers spread wide, index finger pointed straight forward, shoulder over elbows, elbows over wrists, externally rotate the shoulders so that your elbow pits are pointed straight forward, or you're feeling your triceps come towards each other. Have the back long, really connected into the core. Make sure the neck is long, and make sure your shoulder blades are right onto your back. Sometimes you'll see people winging out in their shoulder blades. You want to make sure that your shoulder blades are right on your back. Depending on what you're doing, sometimes you'll have your feet together, sometimes you'll have your feet at shoulder width. On an exhale, if your knees aren't dropped, drop your knees, and then we're going to come into tabletop. So tabletop is much like high push-up. You're going to have hands with the fingers spread wide, index finger forward, shoulder over elbow, elbow over wrist, shoulders externally rotated, connected to the core, long spine. But now we're going to have our knees right under our hips, and we're going to have our toes tucked back behind us. And that is our tabletop position. Now, we're going to come into child's pose. You're going to bring your big toes together, your knees out wide. You're going to push your seat back towards your heels, and you're going to fold forward at your hips. Forehead comes down to the ground. And in this passive child's pose, we're just going to allow the arms to be out in front and bent elbows. So that will allow the shoulders to relax and release. A lot of times we come into child's pose, we also do an active child's pose where we'll stretch through the lats. But just as I go through the fundamental poses, I'm just going to take you into what's called a passive child's pose. Now, there's a variation to a child's pose where you can also have the knees together. I like, when I have my knees together in a child's pose, to actually bring my hands back by my hips. I find it uncomfortable when my knees are apart to do that, but when my knees are together, I find it really nice to do that, to relax through the shoulders a little more. So it's the exact same thing, except knees together. You're going to fold forward at your hips on an exhale, place the head down on the ground, and then place the arms back by your sides, hands by your hips or feet. Now, in this version of child's pose, you can also bring the arms out in front. But what we're looking at doing here is just being in a really restful position where we can allow the body to relax and release, especially through the shoulders. And quite often when we're in child's pose, we'll focus on the breath coming in and expanding into the back. So in an inhale, you're going to come up from child's pose. You're going to come back into tabletop. From tabletop, you're going to walk the knees back about 2 inches. Really press strongly into the hands. Make sure that you're externally rotated. And now as we push back into down dog, I want you to make sure you push through the hands, through the shoulders. So on an exhale, push through the hands and shoulders and push the hips up and back. Now, in your down dog, you want to make sure that your shoulders are externally rotated. So you turn those elbow pits out away from you, the triceps towards each other. How I like to guide people through a down dog may be a little different than most. I want to see the spine long. So you're learning how to keep that connection through the spine and strengthen through the spine and the core muscles. With your knees, I like to have them fairly bent. That allows you to connect to the hands and the shoulders a little more, and it allows that spine to lengthen a little bit easier. You can always start to bring the legs towards straight, but when I'm referring to down dog, I really like to have the knees bent. Now, as you're doing this, you're in what we would consider kind of an upside down or inverted V positioning. On your next inhale, you're going to walk your feet forward back to a forward fold. Remember how we want to be in that forward fold. Knees bent enough, the upper body's coming close to the thighs. Allow the head to hang. Allow the hamstrings to extend. And then bend into both knees. Bring your hands onto the ground again. Inhale, bring the left leg back towards the back of the mat. Now, we're going to come into a lunging position. We're going to start from this lower lunging position, okay, or what some people would refer to as a runner's lunge. Or you can place the knee down here at any point as well, okay? So for a proper lunge, we want to have the foot pointed straight forward. Make sure the knee is right over the ankle. You're strong into the four corners of that front foot. You're pushing through the back heel. So you're on the ball of the back foot and you're pushing actively through that heel. Now, we want to square the hips up. So a great way to think about that is to pull that front heel back towards your toes. Of course, your foot's not going to move. And at the same time, feel as if your back toes are coming towards your front heel. So I'll just show you that movement here. So you'll squeeze and you square up the hips. One more time. Exhale, squeeze and square up the hips. So let's do that together once. Inhale, relax. Exhale, squeeze, square up the hips. Now, from here to come up with the upper body, remember if you want that knee dropped at any point, feel free to. You can use your hand or come straight up. So on an inhale, coming up with the upper body, arms up. Allow shoulders to drop back and down. Neck long, so we want that upper body just like it would be in mountain. Okay, front foot is exactly like we are in mountain. On your exhale, fold forward. Keep your front foot exactly where it is. Inhale, bring your back foot to meet the front, and you'll come into a forward fold. Now, one of the fundamental things that we really look at in yoga is body awareness. So just compare how you feel in this forward fold. Compare it to how you felt in the first. How is that different? Then bend your knees enough that your hands can reach the ground. Inhale, bring the right leg back towards the back of the mat. Set the front foot up again. Remember, four corners of the feet down strong, pointed straight forward. Knee right over ankle. Push into that back heel on the ball of the back foot. Then feel as if you're pulling the back heel back, the front heel back, and back toes forward. Squeezing up and squaring those hips. Once again, you can always have the knee down. You can have the knee up, and you can always either use your hand or come straight up into our high lunge. So on an inhale, either come straight up or using your hands on your thigh. Once again, relax shoulders back and down. Have that upper body nice and strong as we were in mountain. Now, one thing you want to make sure of is that the knee stays stacked over the ankle. A lot of times people will have that knee coming forward to where it goes towards or even over the toes. You want to make sure that knee is stacked. On your exhale, come back down, folding forward. Inhale, front foot stays where it is. Back foot meets front, forward fold. Now, in your forward fold, you're going to place your hands on your shins. Inhale, bring your upper body halfway up. Now, what I want you to do is feel strong in the core, feel the length in the spine and shoulders drop back and down. We're going to come up from our forward fold. You want to feel that exact same feeling leading with the chest. So exhale, come back down. Inhale, bring the arms up and out, strong straight spine. Exhale, bring the hands down through center. Come back and finding your mountain pose. And then taking 3 breaths again. Maybe going to that 3-part breath. Maybe just deepening the breaths. And bring awareness into the body to just really notice how you might feel different now compared to when we first started to go through or before we went through that sequence looking at the fundamental poses in yoga. Okay, so those are some of the fundamentals or fundamental poses and the fundamentals of the fundamental poses, not to be repetitive or anything, that you're gonna find in a lot of the sequences, a lot of the videos, and a lot of the articles that I talk about will contain either those or some version of those.